What's going on, guys? My name is Neil Villapiano, and welcome to another edition of Mofobo Network Presents here on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for checking this video out. It means a lot. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, do all that because all that support, really, goes to helping me, and I would greatly appreciate that. But again, as always, we have a ton to talk about in the world of sports. And I've been kind of on a roll the last couple of weeks when it's talking about baseball, because I feel like, with regards to what has been happening with Major League Baseball, it's been like the sport that everybody's been talking about more often, primarily because they're the only major sport in the United States that does not have a plan to return. Until now, as it was just reported yesterday that the MLB and the MLB Players Association did agree on a 60-game season starting in late July. So let's kind of go through the timeline a little bit. It actually started 2 days ago. Today is the 24th of June, so you'd have to go back to the 22nd of June, which was Monday. The MLB owners and MLB in general did finally decide on having a 60-game season. Robert Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, had the right to implement a 60-game season, since obviously we had gone through 4 or 5 or even possibly 6 different, proposals that were either denied by MLB or denied by the MLB Players Association. So it's just been that whole, back and forth type of thing. But finally, Robert Manfred said, enough of this. He decided to implement the 60-game season and basically said to the MLB Players Association, look, this is what we have. Take it or leave it. Basically also asking the MLB players to report to their spring training, wherever it might be, and we'll get into that in a minute, by July 1st. So the MLB Players Association, it was reported by Bleacher Report that they were going to probably vote yes. And it turns out late last night, that was the case, as the MLB Players Association did vote yes on this. So now we can officially say that we are actually going to have baseball in the year 2020. And now let's go through basically the proposal. Well, not really the proposal, but what exactly you're going to see in the 2020 Major League Baseball season. So like I mentioned, the two sides agreed to terms for a shortened 60-game season. And I mean, that's okay. Like, it's not great. I would have loved to have seen maybe at least 80 to try to, make it almost like a half season. I mean, 81 games would have been great, because that's, half a season. And they're saying that they want to begin either on July 23rd or 24th. So pretty much a month from now, at the time of this recording, they would like to actually start and have opening day and just start playing baseball. Teams report to spring training on July 1st. So a little more than a week, until, they're going to be reporting to spring training. And speaking of spring training, let me just give you guys this information as well. Over the last week, the Philadelphia Phillies reported that a handful of different players who were, practicing in Clearwater, Florida, had been diagnosed with COVID-19. So they had to shut down their facilities. And that pretty much just, forced the MLB to not allow any teams to practice in Florida. So it's looking more and more like that when spring training actually begins, all these teams will be reporting to their respective cities. So an example would be with the Yankees and the Mets. They are going to be most likely having their spring trainings at Yankee Stadium and Citi Field, respectively. And the Yankees and Mets both put out a statement just a few minutes ago on their social media saying that they have been carefully talking with New York Governor Andrew Cuomo about what are the right protocols when it comes to us doing, spring training here in New York. So every single team is going to have different guidelines that they're going to have to follow. And it's going to be interesting over the next couple of days how all 30 MLB teams are going to basically figure out how to have their spring training. So they're going to be having spring training for about 3 weeks, and then they're going to jump into the season. Now, what about the amount of players that you can have on the roster? Well, it is reported that to start the season, every team will have a 30-player roster, which will eventually drop to 26. And I think it'll drop to 26 by the time we get to the start of the postseason. And they also are each team will have a taxi squad of 60 players available to play. So they're going to have a huge amount of players that they're going to be able to implement here and there, whether it's due to injury or, obviously maybe getting COVID-19 or anything like that. And each team also has a special COVID-19 injured list with no minimum or maximum time requirement. So the big thing, obviously, now that we've finally gotten over the hump of actually agreeing on having a season is basically this. What about the testing? What about if somebody gets COVID-19? Well, with regards to if not just one player, but if a handful of players on one team have COVID-19, what's going to happen? Unfortunately, MLB and the MLBPA have not really spoken about that just yet. I'm sure over the next couple of days we'll have a better understanding as to what exactly the plan is going to be. But as of right now, we're not really sure how MLB is going to actually, handle those situations. But they did say with regards to testing for COVID-19 that these players will be tested every single day. So every day they're going to be consistently tested. And the hope is, from my end, is that they don't take away tests from people that really need them that are not professional athletes. I've spoken about that numerous times on different things, whether it's been on YouTube here or on the podcast or whatever. I've said it. That's one of the things I'm very concerned about. Are these teams going to be taking away tests from people who are not athletes that, no disrespect to the players, but I think would probably need them more than maybe the professional athletes. But, again, we're all human and we all have to be treated, the same type of way to an extent, to an extent, not fully. But anyway, so basically that was about the most when it came to the health situation that we know about. We have heard all these different types of, with the proposals that both Major League Baseball and the Players Association have gone back and forth about, things as crazy as like not taking showers after games and things like that. I don't know how many of those proposal ideas have been implemented into this actual 60-game season. So it'll be interesting to see over the next couple of days, like I said, what gets determined and what gets put out in the public. Because eventually we're going to all need to know what's going on so we can understand it like the players are going to hopefully be able to understand. Here are a couple other little pieces of information that I think that definitely need to be put out there so that everybody can understand what you're going to be expecting from this season. Number one is that the designated hitter will be implemented in the National League. So pitchers are not going to be hitting this year. So you're not going to see any craziness with seeing Clayton Kershaw hit another home run or, even Jacob deGrom or Noah Syndergaard, batting well over 300 or something like that. We're not going to see that this year. It's just not going to happen. So we are finally going to see for the first time in the history of Major League Baseball the designated hitter be implemented in the National League. So this is going to be very interesting because I think that we're in for maybe some more high-scoring games because now teams can take advantage of having another utility player in their lineup and maybe, making them, instead of trying to have them in the field because they just want to have them in the game, they could just make him the designated hitter. So the National League will definitely benefit from this. I can definitely see that. They also went with regards to the scheduling. They said 10 games basically for each team. Each team will have 10 games versus each divisional opponent, and they will have 4 games versus regional interleague teams. So basically, the majority of the season is going to be you playing against your own divisional opponent. So if you are the Chicago Cubs, you are going to be playing, again, for the most part, you're going to be playing against the Cardinals, the Pirates, the Brewers, the Reds, and things like that. Same thing with teams like, with the Yankees. They're playing the Red Sox, the Rays, the Orioles, the Blue Jays. And then when it comes basically to the whole thing with, the interleague teams, they said regional. So they're trying to eliminate as much of long traveling as possible. So you're not going to see situations where like the Texas Rangers play the Washington Nationals, for example. That's just not going to happen. You're going to see more things like the Nationals will go as far as maybe Boston and maybe play up at Fenway Park or something like that. Or the Yankees will play maybe only the Mets and maybe the Phillies, maybe the Nationals, maybe the Pirates to, a lesser extent. It's things like that. So you're not going to see a lot of teams traveling very far. So that's kind of a good thing that we're having. Here is one rule that I think is going to be very controversial not just talking about it here, but once we actually see it, if it really is going to go down. At the start of extra innings, each team is going to have a player on second base, a runner on second base. So this is what that basically means. If you go through 9 innings and the game is tied and you have to go to extras, when the top of the 10th starts, the away team is going to start the inning with a runner on second base and nobody out. So basically they're trying to speed up the game. They are also trying to get these games, they're trying to get these games done as quick as possible for multiple reasons. One, to keep people's interest so that they can, see maybe a lot more runs scored in extra innings. And they're also looking for, they're also just trying to get it done so that, these players are not out and about with, and possibly vulnerable to the virus, as much as possible. So that was kind of a thing that they did that for some people, they might see it as a small thing. I look at it as something that I think is going to be very annoying for baseball purists. I think for the regular sports fan that's going to probably watch baseball, I think that you would say, it's okay. Like, it's okay, because then we'll get a chance to see, more runs. So that's something like that. So again, this is also an opportunity for baseball to try to, throw in new things, see what works, see what doesn't work, and go from there. Also, they're saying that August 31st will be the trading deadline this year. So we'll have about a month where teams will basically be the same, teams can trade. And then August 31st, boom, that's the trade deadline. If you want to make any moves before then, you can, and go from there. And then they also said they're going to give out full prorated salaries as well. So here is my thoughts on the whole thing in general, because I've had people ask me before. I actually was just on the Bottom Line podcast with Jimmy Finizzi yesterday. We had Alan Hahn from 98.7 ESPN coming on, and he talked to us about baseball and everything that's going on. And I'll just give the same thing that I said yesterday. I think that Major League Baseball is not making a wise decision by actually having this season. I think that it is frustrating to me because you are in the middle of June, or basically towards the mid to late June right now. You are actually not going to be really starting. We say spring training starts on July 1st, but we're not starting till the 23rd or 24th of July when we actually see games. By that time, the NHL, the National Women's Soccer League, you have professional lacrosse as well, the NHL, the NBA, the WNBA. You have all these different leagues that are going to be starting to play as well. And they're not just starting the season unless you count the WNBA, National Women's Soccer League, the PLL, which is the Premier League, lacrosse league. They are going to be starting their season, but the NBA and NHL are going to be trying to finish the season that they've already played 3 quarters of. So they're jumping, for the most part, right into the postseason. As a sports fan, I am not going to be as interested in watching Major League Baseball regular season while this is going on with the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs, because that's going to be more exciting, going to be a lot more interesting, and Major League Baseball is going to be taking a back seat to a handful of different sports, because we're not even going to be talking playoffs until September, early October, okay? And we're most likely going to be finishing the season in maybe early November. I think that's just a realistic thing. Here's another thing that we have to put out there. There is still the very good possibility that we could have a second wave of COVID-19 in the fall, which means that there's a chance that maybe we won't have football this year, which is really going to cause a lot of people to get very upset, because obviously, as we know nowadays, football is America's pastime. I'm sorry, that's just reality. Baseball is not like that anymore. It hasn't been that way in a very long time. So the NFL, if there's no season, people are going to get very frustrated. And if the MLB is still playing and all of a sudden you get this massive wave of players getting COVID-19 in a rapid pace, you're going to basically have to shut down and your season won't even be done. And then you'll look at it and you'll say, you played 50-plus games, maybe a little bit of the playoffs, but you couldn't finish the season. And then most likely what you'll probably see is Major League Baseball decide to end the season and just focus on next spring. You'll look like an idiot in my opinion. You'll look like a straight fool, and you'll continue to lose fans. I think you already have lost fans if I'm talking to Major League Baseball. I think you've already lost fans. I've spoken to several people that said, as much as I'm happy that we actually get a chance to have baseball, I'm not really that interested. And there's several reasons why. Again, we're in mid to late June. You're starting in late July. By that time, again, you're going to have a lot of the other sports to compete with. You're not going to get that many people. You're just not. And you're talking about, what if you have night games? Well, here's the thing. And look, we don't know if there's going to be night games. I think most likely we won't see that. I think a lot of the games are going to be, maybe, late morning, early afternoon start times pretty much all the time. And you have things, and you're still going to have to compete with NHL games going on, NBA games going on. You have Major League Soccer and other things like that. They're going to be going on at the exact same time. So you're not going to make the same amount of money for TV audience as you would have thought had you started back in March when you made this original agreement. I'm not saying the MLB, made the wrong decision to not try to do something in March. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that Major League Baseball let this go on for way too long, and they understood that this was probably the last thing that they could do to try to salvage the season. And the MLB Players Association finally decided, okay, we'll do it. But to me, it's too late. You've already lost way too much ground. To me, I think you're wasting a lot of people's time, and you're hurting the players because, again, if they get infected and they infect, other people on their team or, God forbid, their loved ones and things like that, that's going to be very problematic. And I'm not saying it's not going to be like that in the NBA or NHL or any other sports league. They'll all be held accountable the same way. But what I'm saying is that you had the opportunity to just let this virus take its course, even in the fall. Just let it roll so that you're more prepared for everything next spring than you trying to finish than you trying to even have a season this year. And I thought it was very bad on Commissioner Robert Manfred's part by going on CNN a couple months ago and saying how much money MLB was in danger of losing by not having a season. No other league in sports said that. Nobody else talked about it because it's not something you bring up. The reason he brought it up is because he was trying to force the MLBPA to do something they didn't want to do. And that's why I've lost a lot of respect for Major League Baseball as a whole. Because for the most part, the MLB owners and Commissioner Robert Manfred basically tried to force the MLBPA and the players of Major League Baseball to play in very unsafe conditions and getting screwed over financially. And I heard this before. If Major League Baseball season didn't happen because of finances, that's going to be a major problem for a handful of years. And I bring this up as well. I watched Long Gone Summer last week, which was great, by the way, and it's on June 14th. If you haven't seen it, please go do so because it's really entertaining. Alan Hahn did mention this to me that I thought it was important that they did miss out on a couple things, like the Yankees winning 125 games that year and winning the World Series. You had a lot of other interesting storylines, so it wasn't really just Sammy Sosa versus Mark McGwire for the home run record, which, by the way, ended up getting broken again only a few years later. It was something we were all saying, oh, it's never going to happen after, Roger Maris. Well, it did. Oh, it's never going to happen after Mark McGwire. It did. Is there a chance that it'll happen, after now Barry Bonds? Yeah, probably, considering that steroids and performance-enhancing drugs are still happening in Major League Baseball and will continue till baseball no longer exists. But going back to what I was saying, they were talking about in the documentary that in 1998, you were 4 years removed from the 94 players' strike. And that took a big chunk of Major League Baseball's interest with people, with fans, and just in sports in general, and they were losing their identity. I feel like we're in that same boat with Major League Baseball here in 2020. You were in a position where the players could have gone on strike. They could have if they wanted to. They could have just decided we're not playing. It's just not happening. You can't do anything to change our minds. And I think baseball is losing its identity to the point where I think it's going to start becoming maybe only the fourth most popular sport in this country. I still believe that hockey is slowly but surely building itself to the point where it could jump to being the third most popular sport in this country. The generation that I'm a part of is not as interested in baseball as 2 or 3 generations before me. They grow up saying, oh, I like the sport, but they're not, in love with it. They're not maybe as passionate as you would think. They're more interested in watching football or basketball and maybe hockey and maybe soccer. You have those situations. So Major League Baseball is in a situation where they are losing their identity, and they're hoping that maybe with having this season, they're able to regain some of their credibility. They won't get as much interest from people until they get to the playoffs. But here's the other problem. If you're having the playoffs in late October, early November, guess what? You have the NHL draft, you have the NBA draft, you have NBA free agency, you have things that will still be more interesting from other sports than baseball itself. So baseball has put itself in a window where there's never really going to be a point where they're the only focus of people's minds. It's just not going to. From the start of April to pretty much August, early September, that's that window that Major League Baseball is pretty much king. Because by that point, the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals are over, and baseball is the only major sport in the United States that's really, really catching people's attention. And that's just a fact when you look at just the regular American sports fans. So you have that. So the fact that you're starting in late July, that window is going from this to basically this. So you're still going to get a lot of the baseball purists and the diehard fans that are going to be watching. But when you look at the regular fan that you're trying to convince more people to become fans of baseball, their interest in the sport is going to be less and less because they're going to be focusing on the other sports that will be returning around the same time. And they're much further along than you are. You're starting a season. Several of these sports are just trying to get into the playoffs and start, those dramatic parts of their seasons. So you have that competition. So it's going to be a problem. So when I heard that MLB and the MLBPA finally decided to, I wasn't that happy. I wasn't that crazy about it. Because look, I am not the world's biggest baseball fan. Yeah, I'm very passionate about it, and I know a lot about it, and I keep my eye on it like everyone else. Part of it is because it's part of my job. I am a sports analyst. I'm a sports host. I talk about these things like I'm doing here today. But is baseball number one in my heart? No, it's not. Honestly, it's either third or fourth, behind hockey, football, and basketball. And that's what MLB is dealing with a lot of sports fans in America, that they're saying they like it and they might watch it from time to time, but they're not, crazy about it, because guess what? The game of baseball is still very slow. People's attention spans are continuing to be less and less, and they're more interested in immediate gratification. They're more interested in just dramatic, up-tempo type of things happening right away than sitting around for an hour, hour and a half until something big happens. And the baseball purists are the ones that would argue with me to say like, well, that's not fully true, blah, blah, blah. Like, those are the type of people that would argue with me. I think from a regular sports fan that lives in the United States, or even sports fans that live in other countries that watch sports, here in the USA, they're going to probably say, yeah, baseball in many, many aspects can be considered quote unquote boring because they're not having as many exciting things happen at a rapid pace. Part of the reason is to what I said is to when we were talking about the fact that they're going to start having a runner at second base to start the extra innings, because they want to see more action happen immediately. They want to have things go quick, because unless you're a diehard baseball fan, you're not as interested sitting there for 2.5, 3 hours where what if it's only a 1-0 or 2-1 game and you're not really seeing that much, really high intense action? You're probably not going to be as interested. And that's why people have gotten more and more excited about the NBA, the NHL, Major League Soccer to a lesser extent. You have women's sports that are coming back, the WNBA, the National Women's Soccer League. You have different sports that are a little bit more up-pace, up-tempo with a little bit more action. So they're going to want to watch those more as a regular fan, because they say, oh, that's more, my attention can focus on that a little bit more. That's the way I look at it. So I'm happy to an extent that Major League Baseball is back. I don't think this is going to go well. I think that we are going to have a lot of problems. We've already heard several players, including Rockies all-star outfielder Charlie Blackmon, has been diagnosed with COVID-19. And we still have the makings of possibly having a massive second wave coming in the fall. And we don't know how bad that second wave was really going to be. And you're already seeing spikes in places like Arizona, Florida, and other places like that that are really starting to make you concerned and say, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Maybe we shouldn't be trying to restart a season. Maybe we shouldn't be starting a season. I would have actually been more okay with and more, I guess I would say, more impressed with if Major League Baseball just decided that they were going to let this play out. They weren't going to have a season. We wait till the spring of 2021 and go from there. Because guess what? That would have given you an advantage over the other leagues, that you didn't have a season to start with to begin with. So you could have just scrapped this year, done some more planning with the MLB Players Association about different protocols, see how the second wave comes and what type of impact it has, and then plan it accordingly by the time you reach March, February, March, April timeframe for when the 2021 season began. You would have had a bigger advantage over all of the other major sports, and you would have been given the opportunity, the first opportunity, to really plan for long-term success with the new world that we're living in after COVID-19. But unfortunately, I think Major League Baseball was feeling the pressure from a lot of the baseball purists, analysts, and also there was obviously financial situations with every single owner and players, and also the backlash they got from letting go of all of those minor league players and not having a minor league season, that I think MLB just fell under pressure and just said, all right, fine, let's just have the season, let's get it over with. Because you already now have 4 or 5 owners that have said that they would be fine with not having a season. And I understand that's not, more than half of the owners or not all of the owners, but that's still like a percentage of baseball that's like, no, I think we're okay with, not having a season and let's regroup for 2021. I think that would have made more sense. But at the end of the day, I understand that Major League Baseball wanted to have a season. There are a lot of baseball fans out there that are very pumped up. I've already seen teams posting on their social media saying, oh, we're back. Let's get ready, folks. And it's like, okay, if you are prepared for this, I'm for it. But you just have to understand, you will still get a decent amount of money from TV viewership because you'll have, obviously there's going to be no fans at the game. But if you think you're going to be able to get a new wave of fans, you're going to be sadly disappointed. You're going to be sadly mistaken. It's just because you're going to be competing with playoffs from several other sports and tournaments and things like that. So I'm pretty disappointed with Major League Baseball. I'm not wild about the season coming, actually. I've pretty much forgotten about baseball for the most part. But maybe things will change when the season actually starts. So July 1st, players will be reporting to spring training. And then July 23rd or 24th is when we will officially have the start of the 2020 Major League Baseball season. And with that being said, that is going to do it for this edition of Mofobo Network Presents here on YouTube. Thank you guys so much again for taking some time to check this out. It means a lot to me. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? I want to hear your guys' opinions. I really want to interact with you guys. It would mean a lot to me. So do please check that out. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel where we post a weekly video talking about the topics of sports. Been kind of on the baseball high the last couple weeks. There will definitely be other things that we're going to be talking about. No question about that as well. But please subscribe. Hit that notification button so you don't miss any new videos that we post here every Wednesday night. Also, make sure to check out the Mofobo Network podcast, which is available on Anchor and Spotify, where we, again, just like here on the YouTube channel, we talk about, things that are going on in the world of sports. We have different guests. We had Keith Irizarry from CBS, and he's doing several other things. He was talking to us about a couple of different things yesterday, so go check that out. And, go subscribe to the podcast as well. Also, check out the Mofobo Network Facebook page where you could check out, and you can keep up to date with the latest podcast and also YouTube videos like this one, episodes that come out every single week. Follow me on Twitter at THENVPSHOW. You can interact with me there on things that you see here on Mofobo Network, and on Instagram as well at NVPQB11. Also, make sure to check out the Devil's State of Mind podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network. It's available in every single place you can think of where you can find podcasts. It is the New Jersey Devils-based podcast on the Hockey Podcast Network. We post a new episode every Monday, sometimes with guests, sometimes with just really great topics to talk about with the New Jersey Devils and the sport of hockey as well. We have social media channels for it, at Devil's State on Twitter, at Devil's State of Mind on Instagram, and also we have a Facebook page just like Mofobo where you can stay up to date with new episodes posted every Monday. And last, but certainly not least, go on Amazon and check out my book, JETS, Pain, Pain, Pain. The pain and ecstasy, let's forget about the ecstasy of being a New York Jets fan, and obviously with what's going on with Jamal Adams and the Jets right now, it might be a good book for you to actually go check out. It's about the pain and suffering of being a Jets fan, all of the pretty much painful memories that Jets fans have experienced over the history of their franchise since the Jets won Super Bowl III. It's for the price of $19.69. So if you're a Jets fan or a football fan, you probably guessed why I chose that price. It's available for hardcover and ebook. So if you're a Jets fan, a football fan, or if you just want to support me, or if you know somebody that's one of those, please, go check it out. It would mean a lot to me. And as always, on the social media channels and everything, if you have any comments about the book as well, please let me know. I would love to hear it. So thank you all very much. And as I always say at the end of every single episode, no matter what is going on in the world, no matter what hardships you're dealing with, and I know sometimes things can be very tough, both mentally, emotionally, physically, whatever you're dealing with. Just remember, when you wake up in the morning, to just do one thing: kick some Mofobo. So thank you all very much. My name is Neil Piano, and we will catch you all in the next episode. Everyone be safe. Thank you, as always, to the essential workers out there, the nurses, the doctors, the people that work in grocery stores, and everything in between for your constant dedication to helping us get through this very difficult time with COVID-19. It means a lot to me. Your work does not go unnoticed. So thank you again, and God bless.